Tech Talk Live. Join the conversation now. Email your questions to info@midsouthadio.com or call us live on the air. 302-491-6484.
Well, hello and welcome to Tech Talk Live. This is episode number 3. Oh, okay. I just talked over our announcer. Sorry. Well, anyway. I should have waited for that cue. Is that not?
That's
correct?
okay.
Okay.
He doesn't mind.
Episode number 3. This is the June edition of Tech Talk Live. And as promised last week, we are going to be adding an extra half hour. So we're here for 90 minutes with you tonight. The last half hour will be shared with a call-in from a couple of guys from Shure Incorporated who are going to talk about the changes in the wireless spectrum and what to do with how to make plans for what you're going to do with your wireless microphone. So lots of exciting stuff coming up, and we've got a big crew here with us tonight. We've got we're all here. Anybody left? Anybody working tonight? There's no money coming in. Let's see. We got Gino Bailey sitting next to me, and next to Gino, Michael LeCates, and our newest addition to the Tech Talk Live panel. His first appearance. This is Stephen Ganong, and next to Stephen is Austin, back for his second time, and we have Dutch Hine on the end.
Dutch Hine.
Yeah. So, or the little guy.
The little guy.
We'll explain later.
I don't know.
So, he has the roaming microphone. He can actually pace. The rest of us are tethered here. So, anyway, that's the crew, and join us. Share the link. Invite your friends. Call us. Email us. We'll be checking all that. Caitlin is in the background here. She's in the back watching for Facebook comments, and she'll be passing that along. But Colin, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Hey, I wanted to congratulate the guys at Mid-South Audio, you and Crossroad Community Church. You made a pretty big deal here. Technologies for Worship magazine. You guys made that article about you in there.
That was the cover, actually.
The cover, right. I should have mentioned it is the cover.
We're pretty happy about that. That's
a pretty big deal.
Crossroads just expanded their entire facility. Some of the people probably were at the conference that we did back in April, and so Technology for Worship covered that story about the new technology that was implemented there, and it's the cover story in this month's issue. And
you like to point out the back of Jeff Duke's head there, don't you?
If you don't subscribe to Technology for Worship magazine, that would be the reason right now to go ahead and it is available online, and you could just download that portion. We've downloaded it and actually blown that up.
Right.
So he's been real fond of that anyway. So.
You've taken a lot of email questions here, and you can get your questions into us at info.
We have. Can I say one thing about that before
Sure.
we get started? Not that I talk too much. Tonight we're going to be giving away a Shure SM58 doing the Shure portion of the show. Next month's guest is going to be QSC, and they're going to be giving away a Touch Mix 8. But tonight we're going to have people just ask Shure. One of the guys from Shure is going to ask a question about something that's covered, and the first person with the correct answer is going to win. That's how we're going to do it.
Okay. Well,
next week we're going to do it a little different. Between now and the August show, so they'll be on the July show, but then we'll actually give this away in August. So between now and the August show, you need to send an email to us at info@midsouthadio.com. Reference Tech Talk Live, and just tell us why you should have a free Touch Mix 8. And we're going to submit those questions or those answers to QSC, and they will select the winner, I believe, at random from those submissions. So You just need to send an email as to why you think you should have a free TouchMix 8. So it's a cool prize. So we're looking forward to that. That's next month, but you can start sending those emails in now. So enough about that.
And we've got questions coming in already online on Facebook.
When am I going to stop talking? Is that what it is? Okay.
Kevin Carter says, nice to have you all back in town. Another Kevin said, did the one church ever call you guys back that was going to paint their screen? So that was a very interesting question last time.
There's been more conversation actually offline about this, about the church thing. It's all resolved. They have the screens. Nothing to see here. Moving along.
Jim says he needs a spare TouchMix. He's got the 32.
He has the 30. He has a TouchMix 30.
TouchMix 30, so he needs a 16.
The disclaimer is that no employees or family of employees or of Mid-South Audio or Catch It Live are
Jim.
eligible.
Jim.
Sorry.
Let's get right into our email questions.
All right, very good.
Colin, you ready for this? We're going to be talking about Justin from Dover.
George says the lip sync is better tonight.
The lip sync is better. All right.
He said that. Good. Okay. Thank you, George.
Justin has a Whirlwind Director direct box that he uses on his keyboard. Can you explain what the ground switch is supposed to do? Sometimes when he switches it, it makes a buzzing noise. Other times it makes no difference at all. He thinks there might be something wrong with it, but is also thinking that it might be the keyboard because on one occasion he used a direct box for an acoustic guitar, and the buzz that was in the keyboard was not in the guitar. Made him believe that the box is fine, and maybe his keyboard is the problem. What do you think?
Somebody jump right in.
You know, sometimes when I flip the switch, the buzz goes away.
I love it. Great answer.
Wait. It's supposed to be a technical show. So you need to have some sort of technical answer to that.
No, it actually if I'm and you correct me, Kevin, you're the electro engineer here or whatever it's separating the earth ground from the ground.
Yes.
From the instrument. Is if I'm correct, you know, and sometimes, like I say, you've discovered yourself. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
In a typical ground, in a properly grounded scheme, you only want one path to ground. So pin 1 in an XLR connector, that switch goes to pin 1. It breaks pin 1, so there's only one path to ground. That typically makes the ground buzz go away. Because if it's there, it means there's multiple paths to ground. But what's the second part of this question? He says
Sometimes it works with his guitar, but then he plugs in his keyboard, and then it does not work.
Well, that's probably because the guitar is a passive instrument, and it doesn't have any. It's not connected to earth ground via an AC outlet.
So what you're saying is the guitar is not actually plugged into an outlet, but the keyboard is.
It could
Correct.
be, yeah.
Yeah,
Now, most keyboards now are connected to a DC power supply, and they don't even have a ground switch on them, so that doesn't really. But maybe his is. So that would be what I would think. Was that good enough?
Yeah, that sounds like a good answer.
Okay, all right.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, jump right in, guys.
I was about to say, with that question, the last little part was, is his keyboard broken? I wouldn't say that his keyboard is bad.
No, there's nothing wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong. The ground switch is there to eliminate loops to ground, multiple paths to ground.
And we see this situation all the time, and not only just keyboards and guitars. We see this in whole sound systems. As if you're on stage plugged into the wall, and the sound system's plugged into a panel across the building, on the other end of the building, and all of a sudden there's a buzz that came out of nowhere. It could be because somebody plugged into the wall somewhere, or the computer is on a different power, a panel. They all should be really sharing the same ground. They're on separate circuits, but they do share the same ground. The only exception to that would be in the lighting world. We do not want the lights touching us at all if we can help it. If there's dimmers involved,
right. Well, because the hash that gets on a dimmer goes to ground,
exactly.
and that rides on the ground, and then you can amplify that. But yeah, the answer to his question is there's nothing wrong with this keyboard.
Yeah.
Nope. I mean, if it's from this description.
No.
So, okay.
Okay, we've got one from Chip from Dover. If you want to send questions in, you can email them in. Is somebody monitoring that right now?
Somebody is monitoring info at midsouthaaudio.com. In fact, I am, actually.
Info at midsouthaaudio.com. Okay.
Or you can call us. We haven't given the phone number out.
That's right.
302-491-6484. We have the ability to take phone calls. How silly of me. 302-491-6484.
The technology never ends here, does it? Telephones.
There you go. Yeah.
Chip from Dover. Chip from Dover's got a question. His wife's ballet company buys gaffer's tape from you each Christmas before she puts on the Nutcracker. The stuff really works well. We love it. Bought a couple of the rolls for my church this year, and they liked it too. But they have switched back to duct tape because it's much cheaper. Everybody just cringed when I said duct tape. They asked me what the difference is, and I really don't know, except the gaffer's tape is easier to work with. Can you explain why they should use gaffer's tape?
Gaffer's tape is for gaffers. Duct tape is for ducks.
Good answer.
I mean, I'll jump in with the whole gaff tape thing. I mean, the big thing with gaff tape is when you put it on something and you let it sit for a week and then you pull it off, the residue from that tape isn't going to be there. With duct tape, it sits there for a day and then you pull it off, especially with Marley, then you're going to get a strip of all that leftover glue from the tape on it. Same thing with mic cables. And then every time you touch it, it's just real sticky. Also with gaff tape, it's so much easier to rip. Just like you said, it's easier to use. I mean, those are the benefits I've noticed with gaff tape so far. Sure. And the fact that it's, I mean, obviously you can probably get black duct tape, but most of the time it's silver.
Duct tape, it was developed for the HVAC industry, and it has a webbing that will, and that tape is not made to be removed. It's made to, fasten duct together and be airtight. So when you do remove it, it leaves a residue. Gaff tape it was designed to be temporary and still have the same holding strength, but it's temporary, so it doesn't leave a residue.
I mean, I can say this, that I have used some cheap gaffer's tape, and it will leave a residue.
Well, that's
what you're saying is right,
tape.
exactly.
Yeah, if you use real gaff tape,
I mean, you're still going to have residue, but it's going to take months. It's going to be like 2 months before you get that.
Yeah, I mean real gaff tape. A very anal classical piano player that has a 9-foot, Steinway will let you tape inside it with gaff tape.
Don't come near it with duct tape.
Don't come near it with duct tape.
No. Near it with or electrical tape, or right. board tape, or anything else. So, enough about that, I guess. But I don't. We have plenty of duct tape in stock. You can buy it from us. Don't go to Lowe's.
All right, William for Berlin.
Did I say that?
Yeah, William for Berlin has a short question here. Is there a rule of thumb for deciding which to use, a display TV/monitor or a projection screen?
We have not heard from Michael.
Michael's turn.
There we go. Yes.
It kind of depends on the situation you're in. If you've got a lot of light in the room, sometimes it's cheaper to go the TV route because if you got a lot of daylight in your sanctuary, you might need a bigger projector in terms of lumens, so that runs up your cost. And depending on the size of your church, you can probably get away with a TV, but sometimes you need a bigger screen. It's kind of very specific to each situation. Some churches it works fine with a TV, others you need something bigger, and you gotta
which is going to give you the better quality picture.
Depends on the size you need.
I was about to say, you can probably make a projector look as good as a TV, but it's going to cost a lot more.
It can
You're
cost
going to need
a lot, but
much bigger projector.
A lot of it depends on the size of the screen you need.
Sure.
Once you get beyond 70 inches, it would cost you a fortune in the TV compared to getting a projector.
And you might as well open the conversation there. When do video walls come into play? I mean, because I just got back from a conference where they were doing projectors, and there were so many more comments about that center wall, which everybody was like, where's the projector on this center wall that's so bright that it's so much different and brighter and everything about it's better? And it was a video wall, put together panels, that, comprise that,
And then I think it's all about distance when you start talking about that. How far away are you going to be away from the screen?
And the only thing that I think we haven't mentioned, and if Mike did mention it, I'm sorry, but did anybody talk about viewing angle?
I did not mention viewing.
Viewing angle is critical because viewing angle from a projector is a lot better than from a screen.
Oh, absolutely.
Than a TV.
Than a TV, yeah. So I mean, that's got to be and that falls into the dimension, right? If you're in a shoebox, then the viewing angle is not going to be that far off axis. But that is an issue that you don't really have with a projector as much as you would with an LCD screen. So. Okay.
Yep. Good job, Terry from Bridgeville. Just wanted to tell you guys that you're doing a great job on Delmarva Life. Darn, I thought they were talking about here tonight. So on Delmarva Life, you're doing a great job. He's seen lots of bands on the show, and since you took over the stage, they really look and sound great. Could you tell me how to get my band on the show? Do you have to audition? So butter you guys up a little bit. And how do I get in now? I think it's really good exposure for us. Have some videos on YouTube and some live gigs if you want to check us out. Once again, congratulations on Delmarva Life.
I know that Delmarva Life has a contact email address, and I believe they accept submissions there, and they would take that all in consideration. We have nothing to do with the bands that are, who gets selected or or who plays. We are very, very happy with our relationship with WBOC and Delmarva Life. It's been a great experience for us. It's been a lot of fun. It was kind of a sentimental thing for me. I grew up it's in historic Studio D, so I grew up watching John Greenberger do the news in black and white in that studio, and now to actually know that we're working in there is kind of cool. So it's a lot of fun. The bands have had fun, I think.
Just do a quick shout out to Christian Toller.
Absolutely.
He's our sound guy. He does the lights there. I mean, he hasn't had a chance to join
And
us
someone
here.
just commented, it looks like the email for that to get on Delmarva Life is comments@delmarvalife.com.
Would that be Annie? Is she watching?
She was, yeah.
The showrunner for Delmarva Life is watching with us right now. So what is that again, Mike?
Comments@delmarvalife.com.
Cool. So and it's it's a great place for bands to showcase too. So it really is. It is great. And Christian does a wonderful job. We've been very happy. So we're taking a break. Now this breaks. No commercials. We're taking 60 seconds here to collect our thoughts, and we'll be right back. So don't go anywhere. 60 seconds. We'll be right back with more questions. So stick around.
Tech Talk Live. Join the conversation now. Email your questions to info@midsouthadio.com or call us live on the air. 302-491-6484. Tech Talk Live.
We're back. See, that wasn't long. And you have that. Katie just shared some comments, so Mike's got those.
Yeah. We just want to thank Annie for, she said, really enjoying the show. Love the concept. Kevin, Gino, Christian, and the crew from Mid-South Audio are the best in the business. Thank you very much for that, Annie.
That's cool.
Yep, cool. And we love working with her, so thank you a lot.
Nathan has a comment online, too. Thanks for all your hard work the past 2 months. We couldn't have done it without you. GNTV.
Oh, cool.
Cool. All right.
Brooks says you got a big group tonight, and Jason says, I miss your clean professional setups from cheerleading in Ocean City. Dutch always has good lighting programs. The little guy.
Who is the little guy?
That was Jacob, the DJ.
Jacob.
Oh,
Is that
Jason.
the DJ?
Well, Jason.
I'm
Jason.
sorry.
Well, Jason, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we will be back at cheerleading sometime in the near future in Ocean City. So that's hopefully we'll be doing that again.
Don't forget
what was the comment before that? Oh, GNTV.
GNTV. Yeah.
We just did 4 gigs, five. Mike, how many?
4.
Jersey, South Carolina, Minnesota, Michigan.
Yep.
With those guys on the road, we spent a lot of time. That was like, I don't know, 5 weeks plus with GNTV. And
for those who don't know, what is GNTV?
GNTV is a company it's a nonprofit out of Macon, Georgia. It's called Good News Television, and they specialize in doing a lot of Methodist annual conferences for the Methodist Church. And all those happen at the same time every year, so they need help, and we go out and help them and assist them, and they're great people to work with. We
great
love
crew,
them
great people.
very much, and thank you for all the work, and you know, we've been doing this for 7 or 8 years. We've been working together for even longer than that, but then we started teaming up, and it's been a great relationship. And we have found that our new truck driver, Charlie Burdell, who drives Big Red, we've named our truck, and actually
Big Red.
is still, and he's 2. Big Red is 2, and Southwest Airlines is 0.
Oh, you know, that's when Kevin books your flights.
No,
I don't think that's Southwest
Caitlin
fault.
books the flights.
Yeah. Somebody else to blame. You know.
I tell her which flights to book, so I'll take full responsibility. But he has actually beat them back from Minnesota and from Detroit, driving Big Red and staying legal.
And staying
Wow.
legal.
And staying legal.
Stayed legal.
Yeah, no truck driving songs, no Doan's pills or any, anyway. I'm not going to go there. All right, what's next?
Well, we're taking phone calls, so if anybody wants
Cool.
to call in, they can give us a call. What's that number, Kevin?
302-491-6484.
We're also taking your emails right now. Kevin is actually monitoring those. Info at midsouthaudio.com.
I should be monitoring them. I've been talking and not monitoring them, but
Speaking of emails, we've got Walt from Exmoor, Virginia. He heard you mention in show 2 about the difference between microphone cable and speaker cable. I've always heard that European cable is the best, like Mogami. Do you sell the good stuff, and why is foreign cable so much better?
I'll let some of these guys talk about this, but let me just point out one thing that's Mogami cable is not European. It's Asian.
Okay.
It's great stuff. Mm-hmm. Some of the best cable in the business. There's a lot of great European cable. Canary. I guess Canari's European, isn't it? I think so.
It's cable.
It's cable. I mean, there's some really good cable. Some really good oxygen-free mic cable. But there's also a lot of great domestic cable. Belden, West Penn, a lot of good cable manufacturers. But Mogami has kind of got a reputation like Monster Cable. It was kind of earlier than that. I mean, it's a high flexible, high stranded cable. But it's not European. It is Asian. I believe it's Japanese.
Yeah, I was about to say, with most lighting stuff in their manuals, when they call for cable, it's calling for Belden.
Yeah, Belden's the industry standard. You know, in the U.S. They've been around forever.
And do you sell that? That's the other question. Do you sell
Belden.
the good stuff?
We sell Belden. We sell West Penn. We also sell. We're a large Wireworks distributor, and Wireworks makes a custom cable that is manufactured in Europe. And it is actually branded in the Mid-South Audio brand, and it's Wirelux and Studilux, and that's what you just bought from us. Did you try to real flexible stuff?
Oh,
have
yeah.
the
That's good
conductive
stuff.
plastic shield, really easy to work with, extremely flexible. So lots of cable options, and we have our tube mics in the studio have Mogami. That's Mogami wire, real flexible stuff. But
on many of our high installs, especially a few years ago, it was all Mogami.
Yeah, there is a big difference, a huge difference in cable world. I mean, there's a difference between the, it's funny now you can go out online and actually find a mic cable that has 25 feet long, 2 connectors, a male and a female XLR. Which a male and a female connector, those things are like $3.50, $4 a piece. Mm-hmm. So you've got $8 there. Plus you got 25 feet of wire. Plus somebody had to make it, and then they had to ship it here from China. But you can literally find 25-foot mic cables online for like less than $5. I don't know how that's done, but let me tell you what you don't want. It's one of those $5 cables. That's why I don't know which one you should buy, but that's the ones you should stay away from.
And I just want to mention real quick. I mean, he said something. Do we sell mic cable? We sell mic cable, instrument cable. I mean,
we can make any cable.
Speaker
you need.
cable,
multi-pair, snakes. We sell it all.
Yeah,
And they all
Well, isn't there? You can use the best cable in the world, but if you use junk ends, XLR ends, you've kind of defeated the purpose.
Well, there's no reason to use a cable that's 97 cents a foot and then put a Chinese connector on it. Mm-hmm. Actually now there's a lot of connectors that are this was never the case, but now there's a lot of connectors that are terminated like they're crimp connectors. They're not even solder. And I wouldn't want to be unplugging and plugging that in on a regular basis.
You open up an inexpensive snake box, and you'll be amazed what you find in the backside of something like that. It's all crimp connectors or spring terminals or something weird like that. That all it takes is for you to drop that box one time, and it's gone.
There you go.
You got to open it up and go through every wire and fix it. And you end up soldering it on.
We have a battery question here. I hope we have a battery expert in the house here. Murray from Easton is asking. He says, my church spends a fortune on batteries for our wireless mics. We go through 120 AA batteries a month. I've tried rechargeable batteries in the past without good luck, but I recently visited a church in Orlando, Florida that uses rechargeable ones every week with no trouble. Is this a special battery?
Well, until 3 or 4 years ago, I would have answered this question completely differently. That rechargeable batteries would not work in a wireless mic, or were so unpredictable. There were some people who were successful with them, but you couldn't guarantee you were going to get an hour service out of a. However, the landscape, the technology of batteries, probably because of the cell phone industry, has changed, and there are plenty of microphones in the Shoreline that have talk. You could talk about that, Mike.
Yeah, there are QLXD and their ULXD all use rechargeable batteries. Even their new GLXD stuff all used to rechargeable batteries. The GLXD, you actually charge the batteries in the receiver, and the QLX and ULX, you can take the battery out and put it in a charger, or you can even get a docking station and you put the mic right in it.
But it's not a AA. It's an actual battery designed by Shure, built by Shure.
If you were to use a regular battery in most of those mics, it would take 2 AAs. These are special batteries that fit in this. It's one battery that fits in the same spot as 2 AAs, so you're getting a consistent charge, unlike trying to use consumer-grade rechargeable AAs where one battery has a different load on it than the other.
And with those, sometimes, I mean, after a couple months with a battery's going to go bad, so you're going to have to toss it.
Right,
I mean,
but
that's
with
just
I
gonna
tell you what,
happen.
I've used these Shure several times now with the rechargeable batteries, and I've had one yet to fail.
No, yeah, and I was talking about AAs with the fact that you have to, like, swap them in and out. I mean, with the Shures, and you're going to get probably 10. You can almost get 10 hours, or
Well,
we've
the
got
cool
10
thing
hours out of them.
with microphones now that are taking the rechargeable batteries, and I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know with the rechargeable battery, you not only get battery life that's in bars, but it actually says 7 hours, 23 minutes.
I want to say
Yeah,
that.
seconds.
I just installed 20 QLXDs. It's just the Academy with rechargeable batteries. And if the meter
Does it
tells
get down
you
to
it's,
minutes?
it's about 10 hours, and then it gives you minutes.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, will that do that with a regular battery, or is it just with the
it's
rechargeable?
just the rechargeable.
So you
that
put
I've
the
seen.
rechargeable in. It used to be that you had 5 bars and then 4 bars, and then if you started with 2 bars, you just had to change the batteries because you didn't know the knee of that curve. It was going to be if 2 bars are going to last you 10 minutes or another hour. So now you turn it on and it says you've got an hour and 15 minutes and whatever left. So it's cool.
So it's actually a specialized mic. You're not going to just take some rechargeable batteries and put in
Nope. Yeah, you're not
a regular, an older Shure mic or something.
And if
I
you-
could really date myself by saying you're not going to go to Radio Shack and get some, some rechargeable batteries and have them work. But there are wireless microphones that have rechargeable batteries designed for them.
I think one of the differences between regular batteries, like a regular battery, and a rechargeable battery is like a AA is 1.5 volts. On a regular, it's 1.2 volts, I believe, on a rechargeable.
Exactly.
And I think that's a big problem, especially when you're trying to output a RF frequency to send back. So it's actually got to transmit.
Yes. You got some comments?
I do have a good comment here from Josh. He said he's had the pleasure of working with this great company and crew many times on several events and in several different venues. So
Cool.
good
Well,
job, guys.
Thank you, Josh. All right. Give us a call. We have not had a call yet this evening. So 302-491-6484. We'll be joined by phone later. Hopefully the phone lines are working. But we'll be joined by phone later with Shure in the second part of the program. But feel free to pick up the phone and give us a call. 302-491-6484. What do you got next?
Well, Denny online, he says, you guys should all be ham radio guys. RF, audio, electronics. You should come and play radio, too. So, anybody here a ham? No?
No. I've always been fascinated by those guys. It's amazing. The things they do. They're what do they call their events? They're
Hamfest.
Yeah, and they just get out in the middle of nowhere, and then they try to build something and then see how far they can talk to each other. It's kind of cool.
It is. It is cool.
It's amazing.
Pat from Seaford, we've got an email from Pat. Let's see.
Here we go.
Brace yourself.
I'm sitting next to royalty, folks. I want to let you know that I am graced by his presence.
Right.
Yes.
Pat says, I've seen Mid-South Audio at a lot of events and concerts. I've always been impressed with the quality of sound at your shows. My husband and I go to the Avalon Theater in Easton, the Freeman Stage, and many shows at Harrington and Dover Downs Casino. These places have some great bands, but the audio quality can be very poor, in my opinion, and extremely loud. I don't think you guys do the sound at these places.
We don't, do we?
No.
Okay, good.
Wait.
Good. The Violent Cork? No, we don't. Okay, good. Okay.
What is the
Good. I was just checking. No, that's not us.
Oh, it's about bottle cork and secrets. I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, I got
Secrets, not us.
Let's see. What is the difference? Hang on. I lost my spot now. What is the difference? I don't want to put anyone down, but my husband and I have often remarked that the difference is very noticeable. In fact, let me go to the paper here. It's easier to read. I remarked the difference is very noticeable. In fact, we went with friends to Hudson Field last week, and there was so much bass we left early. We had VIP seating, but the thumping was making me sick. When we go out, we always look for Gino. if we don't see him,
We're sitting next to royalty.
we know we could be in for a long night.
Well, Gino, just go ahead. What do you want to say?
I don't want to say anything. Thank you. I guess. It's
Do you know Pat from Seaford?
I don't know. I don't know if is it a man or a woman?
Then she said her husband, right?
Her husband. That's right.
There
That's
you go.
right. The clue is in the question. Yes. Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe. I'm glad you said that. No, it's let's answer the question first.
Well,
First,
the bottom
thumping.
line is, if you show up at a gig, Gino's not there, go home. Turn around right there, leave.
The thumping issue. It's physics. If you're 2 feet from that subwoofer, versus the person sitting halfway back or all the way in the back of the room, you're going to get hammered. It just takes that much energy to get the sound of the back of the room and actually move the room.
Sometimes that's not taken into consideration when they sell VIP seating.
Exactly. In many places.
Very close seating is VIP seating usually to the sub.
And it's kind of weird with the VIP seating. It's kind of the worst seats in the house sometimes. Yes, it's great experience because you're 10 feet from the artist.
All the audio guys sit in the back, in the middle.
You're right.
That's the best seat in the house.
Exactly. If you want the best sound, sit next to the audio guy.
Don't talk when you're back there.
Right, please.
We don't want to hear you talk. Don't come up and and interrupt us or talk behind us. But just but that's the best seat in the house.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about it? You do enough festivals in the area, you know who those people are because they sit in the same spot every show you're doing.
Yeah, we spot a lot more musicians sitting around us than we do in the front row.
Right.
They'll avoid a front row seat.
Well, and I think the number one thing is, where do you start? You start with good quality equipment.
Oh, yeah,
that's where you start, and then
good equipment makes it a lot easier for me as the engineer.
I don't. Has anybody here not been to a concert that was just too loud? I mean, it just happens a lot. There's
It's always too loud for me.
Dutch says the lighting guy.
Dutch is very sensitive. We're conscious of Dutch's sensitivity. But I mean that can ruin a great show. If it's too loud.
Yeah.
A friend of mine went to Pier 6 last summer. I don't even remember what they saw. I can't remember, but he was texting me during the show saying, this is ruining it for me because it's so ridiculously loud. So
it's sometimes better when you wear earplugs during those shows.
Now, sometimes we have no control over that. There's been shows that we've been a part of that are too loud because we have to surrender our gear to the engineer that's traveling with the band. So there's a limit. I mean, all we can do is protect our stuff.
Gear. Yeah, a lot of times you'll find me. A lot of times I'm at these shows that you might see Mid-South Audio shirts around the place, and might not see me, and I'm sitting in the back looking at a computer screen just trying to save Kevin's equipment, because they're just hammering our stuff so hard.
Yeah, we're not always mixing.
No,
I was checking with Austin the other day. So we got any headroom? He goes, I got plenty of headroom. So we're good. It's fine. That's Austin's job a lot of times, just to make sure we got more left.
What you were trying to think of about the hams? It's called Field Day.
Field Day. Okay.
Field Day.
Yeah,
Yep.
cool.
Yep. Denny and Martin are checking in. They're both watching, and they're both hams.
Cool. Great.
Now, John, I'm not sure if this is a question or not. He said, Kevin, you guys do work in Newcastle area. Enjoy your show. I think he might be asking if you do work in the Newcastle area.
We do.
You do? Okay.
Yes. In fact, we just scheduled a job today in the Wilmington area. So, yeah.
Okay. What's the number he can get up with Mid-South Audio?
302-856-6993.
Okay.
Or use that same email address, info@midsouthaudeo.com. Or Kevin at midsouthaudeo.com.
And somebody's saying Dutch is very sensitive.
Thanks. I hear about it all the time.
Who said it? Susan, my wife.
Okay. Well, Susan, thank you for letting me sit next to your husband tonight because apparently Pat's a fan.
Right.
Prepare the red carpet for when he gets home.
There you go.
Yeah, trumpets. He'll be entering the hail to the chief.
There you go.
So we're doing a lot of email questions here tonight. If you have any questions, we're actually taking them right now. Kevin will.
And we can take your
them.
phone calls. We've phone lines are open 302-491-6484.
Another email is Andy from Rock Hall, Maryland. Said, first, I would like to thank my friend Bobby Hall from Chestertown for telling me about the show. I've never heard of you guys before, but I really like the show. I hope you keep it up. Thanks for taking the time to give out free advice. I wanted to call in on the last show when you were talking about screen paint. I had my own opinion on that. So that sounds like I've been there, done that type of thing.
Everybody else did too. Yeah.
I have a video projector in my man cave / practice room, and I just shine it on the wall. I think it looks great, but it's all good. I have a technical question of my own. I know what an octave is in music. I did remember something from high school band, but what does an octave mean in sound? I used to have a 2/3 octave EQ for my stereo system, but I never knew what that meant. I was going to call on the last show, but it was over before I had the chance. I'll be watching. Keep up the good work.
Who wants it?
Who wants it? You'll take it.
Oh yeah, the brand new college graduate, brand new graduate from Full Sail University, folks. If he doesn't know this, then he gets a refund.
Right.
Yeah. So here we go.
The shortest, sweetest point I can make as far as like the best way to say that is it's a doubling in frequency, is how to describe an octave in sound. And other than that, that's about as simple
And
as I
that
can make it.
relates to music the same way. An octave above middle C, or the great C is the middle C is an octave above middle C is the next highest C. Same thing, if you were relating it to A440, an octave above would be 880.
Right.
So-
And you take those same numbers and you relate it to our job of sound, and you know how to shape sound and stuff like that. There's certain frequencies, and if it's something muddy or something like that, you grab a frequency. If it's something in the mid.
Did he mention 2/3 octave EQs? 2/3 octave EQs were kind of popular back in the stereo left and right EQ days. That was we used to refer to EQs as in how many bands they had, and 2/3 octave EQs were 15 band EQs. Third octave EQs were like 31 band EQs, and what that meant is you had to control every third octave or every 2/3 octave. So, and those were all on ISO standard frequencies, International Standard Organization frequencies. So you had, I don't know, I can't do this off the top of my head. 23, and it's 230, and 260, and 300, and 380, and 4K, and right? Did I miss any? Anyway, they're in third octaves. So, but Stephen was right. Was that on a test, Stephen? Did you have to do that? Did you have to
It probably was.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, we've got Timmy on the phone. Maybe he has the answer for us.
Okay. Tim?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
man. No, I ain't got no answer on that. But like, I'm trying. No. But I'm working on setting a home studio up, and what do you suggest for like the interface box?
Let's go to Stephen.
Back to Steve.
That depends on how many channels you're trying to record at once.
Oh man, I'm just demo, just a couple, man. If I could do something big, man, I'd come see you all.
Yeah, I've got if you're looking for just like one or two channels at a time, I've got a little Focusrite Scarlett.
Yeah.
It does the job. I don't think it's too expensive. I got it through like
What
a
was that
bundle at
called?
school. It's a Scarlett Focusrite. Focusrite makes a lot of like interfaces and head amps and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've got one sitting on my counter, that my daughter uses for recording. It's a Scarlett.
Yeah, they're
Have
great.
you ever heard Audient?
What was that?
Audient?
Audient?
ID22. My partner Mark said that's good. Is that any good?
It sounds familiar. I'm not
Yeah, I'm
directly
not
familiar with it.
that, though.
Yeah, he just said apogee break.
Oh. He said apogee breaks.
Yeah, apogee. Man, you plug in and out, and you're going to break it.
It's going to break. We don't sell apogee.
I don't
do we?
know. Apogees make some really great stuff over the years.
They have, but
I don't know if
everybody
they-
has something cheap.
I don't know if they currently are or not.
Yeah, that's funny.
What do you all do at your studio? What do you have?
We have a couple. We kind of do a hybrid of an analog digital configuration that we kind of bring things together, through external mic preamps, and then we bring it into the console analog, then convert it to digital after that.
Yeah, the centerpiece of the studio is a DM3000 Yamaha console, so that does the A to D conversion with all their preamps.
Oh, you got it built right in.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
It's
So,
all built in. It goes right to the recorder.
I've
Yeah,
used the
yeah.
USB the USB Pre 2 interface box is a box that I own personally at home, and that I do some voiceover recording with. Also, what's the Shure?
Now, can I get that from you?
You can, yes.
Yeah.
Give us a call. We'll be glad to hook you up with that. Yes.
All right, man. All right.
All right.
Talk to you, man.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Call.
No
Thanks.
problem.
Now, is there a prize
If
for
there's anybody on the phone that has any relationship with Apogee, we apologize.
Is there a prize for the longest distance watcher?
Sure.
Okay. Well, Fred.
I
from,
know where you're going.
Yeah, Fred from Homer, Alaska. He might be the winner.
You know who else is from Homer, Alaska?
Who's that?
Famous person from Homer, Alaska. Anybody got it?
No.
No.
I can't think of it. But I know it. It's the guy from Motel 6. Turn the light on for you.
Oh, Tom Bodett.
Tom Bodett,
Bodett.
is from Homer, Alaska.
Really?
Wrote like tons of novels based from Homer. Yeah.
Huh.
Yep. It's a real small town. It's like 8 people.
We'll get to that. We've got a phone call right now, so we'll get to.
So we actually had someone from Homer, Alaska. I'm surprised they have internet at Homer, Alaska. He had to be on some kind of satellite.
brand new.
Yeah.
Brand new lines.
Yes, exactly.
Who do we have on the phone?
He left the
Colin?
light on for us. Who's here?
D is on the phone. D, are you there?
Okay, D with
I'm here.
D with the man
Hello.
cave in Leonardtown, Maryland. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And we have an abundance of sound reinforcement issues.
Issues or problems? Okay, all right. That's not good. Let's see if we can tackle them.
Well, the issues are musician based. I'm guessing. Who would have finally convinced our guitar guys to lower the stage volume so we can try to get a reasonable mix out front.
Right.
I've convinced them to turn these amps around backwards and face themselves with them, put them on the floor and point them up in their face and try to get them to turn them down. Is that a reasonable concept, or am I?
No,
we do mic each amp, of course.
Actually, that's very reasonable. Also, reamping is something you can do.
Yeah, traveling around and seeing different things. The cool part about having guys come run our gear is we get to see what other guys do. And some of the coolest things I've seen, they've taken the amps off the stage completely, putting them in, because they're on the road, they put them in road cases and actually mic them within the road case. So you see stuff like that, or doing the show for Nils Lofgren, where he took, basically we did this, he got everything set up, and then once we were set up, he asked for everybody's jacket in the place. And he basically piled up everybody's jacket on top of the amplifier. That way he could crank it up as loud as he wants. So, and I fought with my guitar player on this for years. Point your amp at your head because nobody else wants to hear it that loud. It just because it's a battle with guitar players, and there's an argument there.
And people use also reamping devices. Actually, on the first episode of Tech Talk Live, we actually had one in here where you can put the amp in another room and you run a signal. It's a special device, Radio Mix one, that you run a signal to that amp in the other room, and you mic it there and then send it back. So they're making all the noise they want, but it's in another room. In your case, that would probably be your kitchen. So, but that's still, the pod devices that guitar players have now available to them are unbelievable sounding. I mean, you can actually get away without needing an amplifier. So,
right.
Is a guitar player going to get what he needs through in-ear monitors, or is that something he's not going to be satisfied with?
No, because it's changing his sound. It's hard to reproduce that sound of, that one a Roland amp or a Fender amp and get it to transfer all the way through to your ears. Through these little drivers. It's really hard. I feel sorry for
these guys are old school. They're old guys, so they're real old school on a lot of technology, and they just don't. Not that I get it, but they don't get the concepts sometimes. And
are they deaf?
Well, yeah.
They're old school. They've been playing for a long time.
Yeah, they're old guys, man. And
that's the advantage to in-ear monitors is that you actually can crank it up and dust off what little bit of hearing you got left. So and not affect the rest of the world.
But you got when you move to in-ear monitors, you really got to take the time and be willing to take the time to make it right. Make your ears sound good. You got to mic a lot of things, not just yourself. And
But doesn't D has a touch mix? Am I correct?
He has a touch mix. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean with that, and then you can almost have the guitar player have it in ear, and then almost say, "Hey, you got an iPad."
Right. He controls it himself, or you can do it. I have the app on my phone. You can.
Speaking of that, the TouchMix says QSC has released the new version. Anybody know the number? The new version of the software that lets you have the new
1.2 point something.
What's that?
1.2 point something.
You installed like a couple versions of that today.
You did it 4 times today.
1.2.
Yeah. The latest version of TouchMix 16 software is that it gives you a lot of the features of the TouchMix 30.
Yep.
And
I downloaded that on my 16.
Oh, are you okay? You're ahead of us.
It is very, very familiar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very familiar with the TouchMix 30.
And it moved your auxes.
Yeah, we've never actually had a caller answer a question. I just saw a question that came in here D, you're a drummer.
Yes, sir.
We got a question about a drummer here. It says, what's the best way to quiet down drums without sacrificing tone for a touring band? So, you want to take that one, D? We even talk about quieting down guitar players.
Put them in a different room. You can try to put a board around them. You can try to reflect some of that sound.
Drummers love playing in cages.
I don't know.
Those guys really love playing behind plexiglass.
Oh, yeah. That's just what they want to do.
Yeah, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care to do that.
No.
I mean,
it's too
it's
loud.
an option. But if you can put some soundproofing around them, around the back, around beside them,
Now,
on the walls.
Now,
or somewhere,
Steven's
it
a
might
drummer.
Quiet them down a little
Steven's
bit.
also a drummer, and his father's had a home studio for years and years. Glenn Ganong, has worked for us for years. And what does your dad do with there in the studio to try and quiet some of the stuff in there?
Exactly that. I play behind a plexiglass shield behind the kit, and as a drummer, I'm not a fan.
Yeah,
I will throw that out there.
Actually, all those drummers love that.
Yeah.
Let's cage you in, totally isolate you from the rest of the world. That's hard to do. I've always believed that wimpy drummers get wimpy sounds.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta, if you're playing straight ahead, rock and roll or country or it's kind of different if you're playing something that requires a light touch. But if you need some volume, and the problem is to get that, to crack a snare, you're gonna make some noise.
Yeah.
Unlike guitar players, they can get that from a box. It doesn't require it to be that loud. So now their argument would be that drummers could get that from an electronic kit, but then that's a whole other world, another argument. So
Yeah.
So the guitar guys always want that amp on 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not 10. They want 11.
Right. And I tell you what, as a sound guy, I always hate going to a band and having to ask, can you turn down? Because that just sets the wrong tone for the evening, But sometimes it's got to be done. Or, I a lot of times will try and talk my guitar players into angling the speaker away from me, because inevitably as a sound guy, you're sitting right in the direct line of that amplifier, and it just messes the whole mix-up. Because I tell you what, as a guitar player, if your amp's loud on the stage, I'm not going to turn you up in the PA. Why would I turn you up in the PA? And guess what? Everybody's not hearing the same thing across the room at that point, So it's really a give and take between sound guys and musicians, and it's got to be willing to give.
Just solve it. Go ahead.
It's great to hear from you guys, and it's great to participate. I'm going to try to be a regular for you. I really enjoy it and learn a couple things along the way, and it's nice to be with the experts, man. So
Well,
guys, enjoy your evening.
I appreciate you calling in, and we know there's not a lot of activity in Leonardtown, Maryland, on a Tuesday night. So
Hey, I'm busy as heck, man.
Thank you very much. So, if you any lighting questions, you can just call them, and and Dutch would be happy to answer. Any
next time we'll talk lighting with D.
I got a Faircon thing, some Chavez DJ stuff.
Yeah.
Man, it's tough to get that stuff working.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole nother night.
Yeah, okay.
Let's talk about something else than Chavez DJ.
All right, guys. Thanks, man.
Thanks. Hey, I just saw Mike Rittenhouse joined us from Salisbury. Thanks,
Awesome.
Mike. Hey, how you doing?
We have some
shout out to Mike.
And we have some online comments from Jennifer. She says, good evening. Linda says, hey, Kevin from Atlanta. So I'm thinking that's Kevin using Linda's Facebook. So Atlanta.
Yep.
We got Dory
Linda.
says, Bob loves his pod.
Yep. There you go.
Okay.
He's potted up.
And
See?
Greg is
That's
saying
the door.
version 3.0.
Cool.
I think that was going back to...
Greg's on here?
Yeah. We also
we're
have
a
a
little
question. We also have a question from Brad. Are you able to sell the Shure microphones that are being removed overseas? Or are they globally taken? So
stand by to after 8 o'clock. That's a question for after 8.
good question.
That is a good question. So
And I guess we should probably mention that again. Shore's going to be here.
the third half hour of the show, the last 30 minutes of the show is going to be spent with Shure, and they're going to be talking about the changes in wireless microphone tech, the changes in the wireless microphone spectrum. And for those of you who don't know, there's been an auction of frequency bandwidth. So some wirelesses that you may own are going to become illegal, and you're not going to be able to use them. Shure is going to explain what's been going on and some solutions that they have to that. That's all coming up after 8. That's a great question. So can you have that?
I'll hang on to that. Yeah.
We'll pass that along. So We want to thank Dee for being a regular caller, and the phone lines are open, 302-491-6484.
And getting back to Fred from Homer, Alaska.
Okay.
So far, he has the prize for watching the furthest away. We do have somebody from Atlanta viewing.
He does.
Fred says, a friend shared a link of your show. Great job, guys. I'm loving it here in Alaska.
Cool. Like I said, it surprises me that there's any internet in Homer, Alaska. But, and there's no Motel 6, even though that is where
Really?
where Tom Bodette's from. Yeah.
Maybe somebody's recording it and
There you
flying
go.
it into an airdropping it.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, we've got a question here that...
All right, this one's a little long, folks.
Yeah, so this is Jim from Salisbury. First off, he would
Our
like
screen's not even big enough to hold this question. Right? You're going to read the setup, and then we're going to see the question, right?
Right.
Okay, here we go.
Yep. First off, I would like to thank you for putting this show together. I watched the first show live and caught the last one from your Facebook page. I've known Kevin and Gino for years, so seeing him on this show is enjoyable. But the little guy, I think his name is Dutch.
The little guy.
He's like a dog with a bone. He jumps in and won't let go.
We've not seen that at all tonight.
I'm
going to
show up to work tomorrow, and they're going to have a bone for me.
I think I have enjoyed him the most. Great job. I would get a kick out of it if you use the following question on your show. I'll be watching.
Can we stop right now? We're gonna announce that the September, October, and November shows will be hosted solely by Dutch. He'll be here by himself. We'll be calling in from a condo somewhere.
Homer,
with our feet-
Alaska.
Yeah, from Homer, Alaska. We're going to Alaska. Dutch is on his own.
Continue, please.
Yes, please. We digress.
That's funny.
So the question is, I started playing bands in high school, graduated in 1969. I continued playing through college, and then in a list of bar bands around the Eastern Shore, as long as your arm, for the past 40-some years. I've played through and purchased a fair amount of PA gear over the years. I've always had an interest in electronics, and even though I've always been a drummer,
There's a question coming.
I always been the guy that owned the PA. There is a question coming, I promise. I had a Sun Coliseum mixer in the 1970s, then a Tapco mixer,
Cool.
a Kelsey mixer in the early 80s,
Cool.
and then on to a Mackie, Yorkville, and Yamaha in the 90s, until most recently getting a QSC Touch Mix 16.
Cool.
That's the background. Here comes the question. In reading about digital consoles, I see a lot about DCAs and how they are the digital equivalent to VCAs. None of my old analog mixers had VCAs unless a VCA and a subgroup are the same thing. That's what I've always assumed, but I'm beginning to think this is incorrect because I see some mixing boards have both. Even some digital mixers have both. So simply stated, what's the difference in a subgroup and a VCA, and what is a DCA?
I'm going to let one of these digital guys take that question, and then I may back it up with the audio back. Mike, you want to grab this one?
No,
He doesn't want it?
No. Well, you have a group. So you want to take this one? You can start. If you know what a group and a VCA. The
So,
difference is.
a VCA is a voltage-controlled amplifier. It's essentially a remote for a bunch of other faders. It's not really grouping anything together. It's just you pull one fader down and it's pulling all of the faders that are assigned to that VCA down by the same amount. A group is a combination of faders to like another bus that is then going elsewhere, and that has its advantages because you can have processing on that. You can put a compressor on it, and EQ, whatever. Group all your drums together, slam them with a compressor. They're going to be nice and fat.
A group is being routed.
It's a group. That's a group. Now VCA, there's no processing or anything like that you could do.
It's not an audio path.
It's right. It's not another path.
And the VCA or the DCA, which there really is no such thing as a digitally controlled amplifier. I mean, it's kind of like that's the fun name they call it. But a voltage controlled amplifier, actually, when you're pulling it down, you're actually pulling down the voltage of that preamp in that channel circuitry. So everything comes down. It's gonna pull down what's going to any aux mix,
Right.
Or any other post routing besides that. That never happens in a subgroup. Subgroups are just dealing with a routing of the output of that of that channel. So that's the difference. Big consoles, big analog consoles had both, had VCAs and subgroups. They both kind of have different functions. And even now, the QSC, the Touch Mix 30, has both.
Right.
And then they function differently. You can assign things to multiple DCA or multiple DCAs. You can assign subgroups to DCAs. So hopefully, is that specific to? He wanted to know what is the difference. Even though some digital mixers have both, what is the difference in a subgroup of a VCA? So I think we covered that. And what is a DCA? And the DCA is just a digital version of a VCA. I mean, it's the digital equivalent. It's like there's no digital compressor. It's it looks like a compressor, so it must be compressing. So that's kind of the idea. Yeah.
Nathan wants everybody to know that Dutch is awesome.
Oh, thank you, Nate.
The little guy is awesome. Little guy is awesome. Bone or no bone.
We've got one more email to get to here before we take the break and hook up with Shore.
Okay.
And this comes from Patty from Binghamton, New York.
You know, that's not that close.
No, that's a pretty good distance. Not as far as Alaska.
Not as far as Homer, Alaska, but Binghamton, New York. Gino and I almost got arrested once in Binghamton, New York. You want to tell that story?
You want to hear this story?
My wife's watching.
We could talk about that. We were on our way to a bluegrass festival. That's enough. That's enough.
That's how every I almost got arrested story starts, right?
Yeah. We thought we were going to get to spend the night.
That was years ago.
Years ago,
honey.
Yeah.
Moving on, Patty says, she says, "Hi, guys. I just found out about your show. I'm an audio lighting tech for a rock cover band in upstate New York. I started working with them in college. I'm the only female I know that's working on the tech side in Broome County area. There are plenty of girl musicians, but I don't run into many female techs. I've noticed you have your own boys club going on there in Delaware. How can women break into this business? Don't get me wrong, I like the show and have shared it with my friends, but I really have noticed a lack of women in the business. Do you have any advice?"
I mean, I'll just jump in real quick and say there's plenty of women on the road. I mean, what's the dog? I'm sorry that I mean, this is not the Kevin Talk show. I'm sorry. I mean, we see plenty of women on the road. I mean,
Absolutely.
and we also. I mean,
but there's a discrepancy.
Yes,
well, yes.
Yeah. But there's. I mean, I think she may be there. I think there's more than she's aware
Sure.
of. It's not void of females.
No,
we're seeing a lot
and
of
Sarah works for us. You know,
I mean, we got Brandy who run
We got
lights
Brandy,
at Freeman all summer long.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have. There's 2 females on our staff that do technical work,
and you have Katie and.
You know, there's all sides of it. Yeah.
I just got back from. I spent my wife and I were on vacation in New York over Memorial Day weekend, and we went to a few Broadway shows, and went to 4 shows. The front of house mixer for all 4 shows were female. Lighting director for 3 of those shows were females. Mm-hmm. Those are great gigs. I mean, that's not an entry level gig in this business. That's a gig that you really got to work for, and they were all handled by females. So there's a lot of men. I know, and there's actually women's organizations in audio. There's I know the AES has a women's organization. You know, it's to promote women. How was the female enrollment in Full Sail? How was it?
It was definitely tilted scales quite a bit.
Sure.
There was more male than female, but
Yeah.
there were quite a few female students there. I was actually surprised.
Years ago when there was, forget it. It doesn't matter. We'll move on. I was going to tell a Garrison Keillor story, and then and there's no reason to tell a Garrison Keillor story on a Tech Talk Live. That's another show. So he used to, anyway. Go ahead. Move on.
See, somebody's going to respond and want to know what the Garrison Keillor story is, though.
I'll explain it later.
Okay.
So, Garrison Keillor did his radio show when it first went nationally syndicated. He fired all the guys and hired all women technicians because he thought he was getting a better skill set with women technicians because there were fewer of them in the business and they were more dedicated, and that's kind of when his show broke nationally, is when he went with the entire crew, the producer, the director, all the technical people, all went to women, and he did that for like 10 years.
Wow.
So, and he thought that I guess the union that was local was just all sending him guys, and they were and he didn't want to do that, so he broke the mold and I guess the glass ceiling and did that. He was a trendsetter in that way.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And with that, she says, do we have any advice? I mean, this is going to be a little cheesy and all that, but I would just say just don't give up on it. I mean,
if you want to do it, do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And commit to it. It's not an easy job, what we do. It's a level of commitment, to the job. Pull it off, and it's hard to do it.
There's no gender barrier in this business. I mean, there's no reason why there's no difference. I mean, it's a great I wish there were more females available. So
Right.
we don't. I mean, but we see. I mean, it's probably 20 to 1 of applicants.
Right. And maybe they just don't want to deal with the crap.
You know, it could be. They've got other things to do.
Right.
You know. But I don't think it's a boys' club.
No.
I really don't think so. I mean, we're having fun tonight.
Right,
But,
sure.
Shore coming up at the top of the hour. Shore.
They sure are.
Yes, they are.
No pun intended.
But we want to take a break right now, or we want to take
Okay.
a pause and ask people to share this video.
Yeah. Now, how do they do that?
Well, if they look right underneath, sometimes there's a button that says share, and sometimes it's just an arrow. But just click on it is all you got to do. We want as many people to see this as possible. So share
I see
it and
Brooks
direct-
Ritter's watching us here.
Brooks, if you would hit that share button, please.
There you go. I missed the clean professional setup. Okay, I'm getting old comments here. Okay. Anyway, so how do they share it one more time? Tell me.
Well, there's either a button at the bottom that actually says share, or there might just be an arrow. Looks like an arrow. You click on that, and that'll share it. And just share it right now, and that'll help us reach as many people as we can.
Cool, absolutely. We've got the guys from Shore coming up in about 60 seconds. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Tech Talk Live. Join the conversation now. Email your questions to info@midsouthaaudio.com or call us live on the air. 302-491-6484. Tech Talk Live.
Well, we've expanded the show to another extra half hour. We started this idea. We had this idea last week, and the first sponsor to jump on board was Shore, and they're going to be joining us in just a second. The wireless landscape is changing again. We made it through the 700 megahertz auction that happened back in 2008. And now the results of the 600 megahertz auction are in, and the UHF spectrum is like beachfront property. I actually got that from Shore's website, in case somebody. I don't want to take this. That's not plagiarism, is it? If you give him credit. So the UHF spectrum is like beachfront property, and we're about to have less of it available with increasing numbers of people wanting to live there. It can be confusing and frightening, but never fear. Shore has been aware and involved in every step of the auction, and they are here to help guide us through this new wireless frontier. Tonight is our first sponsored guest in Tech Talk Live. It's a spelling error. See that? Tech Talk Live, we are joined by Greg Geiser from SK McDonald, the Mid-Atlantic Shore representative, and Ben Escobedo, Senior Marketing Development Specialist for Shore Incorporated. And here is Ben's brief bio. For over a decade, Ben has worked in the audio and wireless microphone industry. He enjoys teaching others the latest practices and tips to make their lives easier. In his free time, he likes to play guitar and build guitar effect pedals and PC boards that he designs. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us tonight. Are you there?
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Cool. And who do I have? Is that Greg? Is that you?
I am also here, yeah.
Okay. And is that Ben? Okay, great. Thanks for being here. You know, it might be more fun if we just talked about guitar effect pedals and PC boards instead of the 600 megahertz wireless spectrum. But that's not. I guess that's not going to happen. So anyway, can you? A lot of people, we're starting to get contacted at the office because Shore has introduced a rebate program, so we're going to get into that. But can you kind of give our listeners and our viewers an overview of what has just happened? I don't think there was as many people affected by the 700 megahertz auction. I guess you could correct me if I'm wrong about that. But this one is kind of affecting more people, and it seems to be getting more attention. So can you just catch us up as to where we are and how we got here, and then we'll take it from there?
Absolutely. So basically, it's a little different than the 700 megahertz auction. With the 700 megahertz auction, we pretty much knew what was disappearing, the 700 megahertz, anything from 698 and up. and we knew when that was going to happen. Around 2009, it was all kind of written in stone, and we were prepared for it. Although it was kind of the first large auction of its type. With this auction, it's slightly different. Although the auction has concluded, it was a reverse auction, so we were kind of up in the air for a while about when and how much spectrum we were going to lose. So it was kind of hard and difficult to make plans as the bidding process went down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
Now, is it fair to say that a lot of people were surprised at who the winning bidders were for that chunk of bandwidth?
Yes and no. I think the largest one that comes to mind is T-Mobile, and kind of some surprising stuff or some of the other larger entities.
Yeah,
like
that's kind of what I'm getting at. That I guess people were thinking that Verizon or some of the larger players in the telephone industry or the cellular industry were going to, but it was T-Mobile and Dish and Comcast, correct? Is that not right?
Yeah, that's pretty much some of the larger winners of this auction. Yeah.
So what is that? What does that mean? So they've actually auctioned off part of the spectrum that wireless microphones that are currently being used are in, and they're making TV stations move around, correct? And then so what does that leave us with? So that's done. That's happened. Now there's a date this all gets implemented, but what do we do in the meantime? So,
well, it's a little different because while there's a hard and fast date around Q2 of 2019. If and when these telecom providers start testing your equipment or firing things up, you have to vacate the premises, if you will, immediately. So we're already seeing in New York City, in the market that I serve mainly, some of this interference happening already. T-Mobile has already begun to do some testing and firing up 600 megahertz devices, meaning that those devices, if you have wireless mics that are in that range, are now forbidden and illegal to use, even though it's not quite 2019 yet. So it's a lot sooner in some areas than we expected, and it's moving right along.
And that was because part of this auction did allow them to do early testing, even though they haven't fully implemented. They're allowed to test in that band, and that can affect you if you're in that area. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes, right. Yeah, I believe I read somewhere that T-Mobile is determined to be up and running by the end of the summer. So they're going full tilt to get their network up and running.
Wow. Now, you joined us on the phone tonight. I understand you also have some slides to help your presentation. So if there's any time you need us to go to that, just let us know, and we will bring up whatever we need to on the screen. So that's how we got to where we are. So basically, a great big chunk of the frequency bandwidth is going away. If you have a microphone, in that if you're currently own a wireless that's in that band, you're not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to use it. One, it's going to be illegal. Two, you're going to be getting interference, and it's not going to work well. Is that correct?
All of the above. Yes.
Yeah. So, what do we do?
Great question. Much like back in 2009, when we had the 700 megahertz, you can opt to sell your wireless microphone on an auction site like eBay to a country that may still be able to use it. Latin America comes to mind, or New Zealand and other countries can still use the 600 megahertz range.
That was actually a question that we had earlier in a segment tonight. Somebody actually posed that question, and we wanted to wait till you got on, but that covers that question, right, Colin? Because they said if you own current wirelesses that are becoming illegal, can you sell them outside of the country? And right. So that is an option that's available, I guess.
That is an option that's available, just like it was in 2009. As far as I know, there's no restrictions on doing that. Of course, operating them where it's illegal is not, and also sending it to the manufacturer for service and such is also kind of forbidden. Wireless manufacturers cannot work on this equipment and legally send it back to the end user at this time.
So Shure right now is involved in and I don't want to push this story forward too fast, but you guys have been real proactive with this. I mean, wireless is a big part of your business. You've stayed. Yes. I mean, I think you've put the most information on the street compared to any other wireless manufacturer, and that's not. I don't think it's a biased opinion. I think it's just a fact that you guys have been way ahead of this, at least in the public information realm. And you've come out first with a program to help not only your customers, but anybody that's getting stuck with this, because people aren't going to just get hung with Shure wirelesses that are in the 600 megahertz range. They're going to they could own any brand that was ever manufactured in that band. Is that not correct?
That's absolutely correct. And yeah, thank you for that. We are very proactive. We were the first to come out with a wireless rebate program. We are accepting devices in the 600 megahertz from Shure or any other manufacturer. We don't care who it is, as long as the device is in that forbidden range or part of it overlaps that forbidden range, which we're talking anything above 614 megahertz. We can take that back, and the rebate that we offer is based on what you purchase, not what you trade in. So we don't care what level or tier of the wireless that you're giving or trading back into us. It only matters based on which tier you buy, anywhere from $50 rebate all the way up to $500 for our new Axient digital product.
I think that is the coolest part of this particular rebate, because typically a rebate is it's got a lot to do with what you're turning in, and that has nothing to do with you could turn in the most inexpensive wireless, but if you buy a higher end wireless from Shure, you're going to get a larger rebate. It's based on what you buy, not what you turn. It's not what you turn in.
That's
so
right.
That's really that's really helping the consumer. So.
Exactly. We try to help the consumer, get them the latest, greatest, what fits their needs, not necessarily what we're trying to force on them, and as well as taking some of the illegal 600 megahertz stuff off the street and doing our part for the FCC.
Ben, we've had a question come in. Can we just pause for a second to address a Facebook question?
Sure.
We have this from David. He says, isn't some of the 600 bands still available for use? Please clarify, if you would, the exact frequencies that are being prohibited for my use. Do you have a slide that helps with that?
Absolutely, yeah. There's quite a bit. Let's say that in the broad stroke of things, anything below 614 is going to still be okay to use. Now, there are some slivers and some slices of spectrum that will be available to use, although I'd like to refer them as breadcrumbs because they're not exactly large portions. And there's also some interesting unknowns at this time about what's going to happen with this stuff. I'm trying to find a slide here that we're talking about.
No problem. We're connected via phone and via Blue Jeans tonight. So we have
Blue Jeans for the slide actually. Yeah. So essentially, we're forced. We knew what was going to happen with the 700 megahertz, and we're forced out of that. If we look here, can you see the slide that I have up?
Are we getting the slide column? Yes, we've got it. Thanks. Yep.
Okay, great. And so basically, if you can see here, from 470 all the way up to 614 megahertz is the contiguous, unaffected UHF band. TV 37 or channel 37 is a radio astronomy band where we talk to aliens or whatever. It's a satellite communications and that sort of stuff, radio astronomy. And
that's the alien band, folks. He said it here. That was not a comment from Mid-South Audio. That was actually someone that works for Shure that said the alien band on channel 37.
ET phone home or whatever. That's what we're looking
That's
at.
That's the channel he's calling in on.
And then, of course, we have these big dark bands here that are mobile broadband and then mobile broadband. There's an uplink and a downlink, much like back in the old modem days, or you have an uplink and then a downlink type of speed, or just like at your home internet. The same thing's going to apply here with this band for the telecom companies. Now, there's a little sliver called the GB or the guard band between 614 and 616 megahertz, which may be okay to operate. And then there's also going to be what we call a duplex gap between 653 and 663 megahertz. This little duplex gap may or may not be okay to use. We're not unsure because we don't know exactly how much bleed over is going to be between the uplink and the downlink. But if you look below there, we see that licensed users can use 653 to 657, and then unlicensed users can use 657 to 663. So not exactly a large amount of spectrum that is going to be left over with these little breadcrumb areas, but it could be possible to squeeze a few microphones in there.
Can we talk for clarity? Can we talk about the difference between licensed users and unlicensed users? And I think I know what that means. And I think it's going to relate to size of venue and how many wirelesses in this particular place. But can anybody become a licensed user, or what are the parameters guarding that?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Typically, historically, we would have licensed users be the broadcasters, and they would have first dibs at this because they own a lot of wireless mics and they need wireless mics to use and so forth. The FCC, with all this transition, has actually opened up and relaxed the rules of a licensed user to include any user who typically or routinely uses 50 microphones or more. So this opens it up to not just broadcasters, but houses of worship, large churches, rental houses, you name it. These guys are now all eligible for licensing, and then they can take advantage of some of these other little, like this duplex gap license band and so forth. So it will pay to get licensed depending on the amount of microphones you have. Now, I must say this also with a grain of salt. As a manufacturer's perspective, of course, it is difficult to make a wireless microphone that just cherry picks and jumps around from little bits of spectrum, and then also does 470 to 614 and such. So I think while we will see some microphones take advantage of these as we get more knowledge about them, for the most part, you're going to see wireless manufacturers stick between 470 and 614 at this time.
I know, 470 and 614. I know that there are bands that Shure has sells that have gone. You've seen this coming. So there's bands that you've taken off the market and that you can no longer buy. That's correct, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yep, the J range and so forth.
Exactly. Yeah. If you have a wireless that can tune into the illegal band, are those bands going away? Even if you can tune out of it? And if you can still have the ability to tune in it, how's that handled?
That's a very great question and very much kind of a gray area at this time. But what I can say is this, is that, yes, if you have a device that can tune or straddles 614 and below and then above, that device would technically be illegal to have. With that being said, we are taking measures and working on ways to make those devices compliant with the FCC. So if it's still usable below 614, I don't necessarily get rid of them and throw them out. If it's going to be a burden to you, we are actually working on ways that we can make those FCC compliant for you.
I had heard a rumor.
Depending on the unit.
Excuse me. I had heard a rumor at Infocom that if you owned a wireless that was tunable in that band, that Shure may be having a firmware upgrade that would limit you to be able to tune in that band. Is that just a vicious rumor, or is that kind of one of the solutions you think may be coming?
It's something we're seriously looking at and pushing forward with. I think it's our best interest to make our customers compliant and happy the best way we can. It's not so much, that seems pretty straightforward and easy to do. It's not so much that as all the back-end stuff, making the new label, how to get the new label in the customer's hand, how to make sure that this is a non-reversible process and the customer is completely aware of it. There's a lot of stuff that you have to think about rather than just like, flash this firmware update and everything will be cool. But yes, we are looking at all angles and hopefully should have something on that frontier. I would hope.
Now, and back to the licensed users, are they only available to be in that duplex area? Because that's where all the licensed users will have to be.
No. There's other licensed stuff. We haven't talked about the STL band yet. There's some expanded opportunity in the STL or the 900 megahertz or middle 900 megahertz. That'll be an option as well. Also, licensed wireless microphone users can enjoy the possibility of using up to 250 milliwatt instead of just 50 milliwatt transmission power legally, and so forth. So there are definitely some advantages besides just using the duplex gap or the other little crumbs that are left over.
I know that Shure recently made some VHF bands available, and I grew up in the decade where we thought we had just gotten past VHF and gone to UHF, but I guess VHF now is looking appealing because there's less activity and more. It's wide open, more wide open spaces there. Is that correct?
Yes and no. VHF is an opportunity because there is less stuff going on typically. There's some other challenges as well. There's some other interference sources like from microwave ovens and other things that can cause havoc with VHF.
And that's the reason we all moved on from VHF in the first place.
Playing a gig and then hearing the police scanner come over your microphone or guitar wireless back in the day, that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's some problems or some challenges with that.
The reason I brought that up is I received an email the other day from a customer, and they said that's what their plan. They have devised their own scheme, and their scheme was just to buy VHF wirelesses and just not worry about this. And I thought, well, there used to be some issues with VHF, and you hit on one, and just. hearing emergency communications come through, a lot more interference, and so that's not going to be fixed by all this.
Now,
No, and just based on physics, the VHF is a longer wavelength. Therefore, you need a bigger antenna. If you look at some of our VHF paddle antennas, they're quite large compared to their UHF counterparts. You mentioned the beachfront property kind of thing. Right around the 600 to 700 megahertz is the best bang for your buck. You have a good manageable antenna size, good battery life, less power needed to transmit a farther distance and so forth. And this is why the T-Mobiles and all the telecom guys really want this 600 and 700 megahertz beachfront property, if you will.
Ben, if you can hang on just 1 second, Gino's got a question or a comment for you.
Earlier, we heard the term being thrown around illegal. So I'm somebody who owns a 600 megahertz microphone, and when this thing all goes down and things go into effect, what happens if I continue to use it?
They're going to lock you up.
Right, exactly. Are they going to send people, and do I need to look out the door when I go out every morning, or, you know?
Well, I can comment historically on what happened with the 700 megahertz and my experience with customers there. Essentially, it's not the FCC or the government. They don't have the manpower, and they don't really care about who's using it. They don't really have the resources to go do this. But back in the 700 megahertz in the 2009, 2010, I've seen personally some cease and desist letters from like Verizon and other telecom companies, cruising by a little white van with an antenna on it, and maybe it's a little church on the country road that only operates on Sundays and says, hey, you're operating on 740 megahertz on Sunday. We want you to cease and desist immediately or we'll take legal action. And I would assume that the same thing will happen with the 600 and the T-Mobiles and whoever else. They've invested heavily in this range. They legally own it, and they don't want anything to interfere with their stuff. So if they find whoever's using it, they will probably take legal action.
So a hypothetical situation, you attend a mega church, you're the technician at a large church that maybe has 20 or 30 wireless frequencies, and you don't make the switch, and you don't take advantage of this rebate program. And then all of a sudden, T-Mobile starts getting complaints that people are dropping calls that didn't happen 3 months ago. That may get investigated, and that's when you're going to get a cease and desist. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's pretty much the way I feel about it, and it goes the same way with the 700 and what we probably can expect.
So it's going to be complaint. It's going to be complaint based. So, and the thing is, there's no real reason. If it's illegal, we know it's gone away, and there's an option right now on the table to be compliant and put money in your pocket. So I mean, it's like you're not going to the frequency, the spectrum's not going to come back. They're not going to unauction it. So you're going to have to deal with it. And so can we talk about that? Do you have a slide for those rebates, or am I jumping ahead too quick?
No, that's fine. You can show some of the rebate stuff. Let's see here. So it's really easy on the wirelessrebate.shure.com, or if you just search Google Shure rebate, first thing that pops up. You can't miss it. It's right on our homepage and everything. We are running this rebate until April 30th of 2018, so you still have plenty of time to get in there. Although the sooner you do it, the better. Rebate, find out if your system is eligible. Basically, if it's above 614 megahertz or straddles that range in any way, it's going to be eligible. You fill out the rebate form, and it tells you about what a qualifying system is. Basically, we want one channel, so one receiver and one transmitter would be one channel. Or if you have a dual receiver and two transmitters, it's two channels, and so forth. So scrolling down here, if you can see, it goes anywhere from about $50 all the way up to $500 for our Axiom digital product. Again, based on what you purchase and not what you trade in. We don't care if it's a Shure product or not. It just matters that it is in that forbidden or above 614 megahertz range.
The program is you introduced this program very proactively, and you've put a year time limit on it. And I think that is a reasonable amount of time. A lot of people are heavily invested in the wirelesses. The people it's going to affect the most, obviously, are not someone that owns just one, but owns multiple. Has a large investment in wirelesses. But you with a 1 year time limit, you've got time to budget. I know that we've contacted our customers that have large amounts of wireless, and that's how they're doing it. They're putting in their budget. Mike's made some contacts already with with schools and churches that have large amounts, because I think the year time limit on this has been a great thing. I have personally been asked, but do you think Shure is going to, because the date for it becoming illegal is even further down the road? Do you think Shure is going to extend this? And the year time limit now is something that's a hard and fast limit. You're not that you won't, but you don't think you are. That's not the plan, right?
As far as I know, that would be the end of the time limit. And if anything, that we've seen, especially in metro areas, we've seen this is going to happen sooner than later. So you might be thinking that you might have to change sooner than you thought. 2018 or 2019 may be the end on paper, but it may actually come a lot sooner. So just be aware of that.
Now, so we've ended up with a smaller space to operate wireless microphones, and this is not just microphones. This is also in-ear devices, any kind of wireless transmitter, right? That's all.
That's right. Yes.
So the spectrum is smaller. We've got a smaller space to operate in, and so that brings up the question about what to purchase. And I guess the can you talk a little bit about Axient and about and about the ability of digital wirelesses to operate in a smaller slice of the spectrum and to be able to get more units in a smaller area, because that's kind of the key, I guess, because without that you're losing a lot of functionality. Is that not correct?
That's exactly correct, and I'm glad you brought this up. We timed this rebate launch right before NAB, which we announced our Axient digital product, which is brand new, state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line UHF digital wireless. The Axient digital product is pretty much the best in its class in a lot of features, the sound quality, but most importantly, spectral efficiency. We can typically, if we're talking analog or regular UHF microphones, normally you can get about 8 to 10 per 6 megahertz television channel. With the Axient digital product, we can do 17 in regular standard operating mode in 6 megahertz. And if you want to push it even further, we have a high-density mode where we can actually put 47 microphones in one 6 megahertz channel.
Now, what do you give up in high-density mode? Can you explain that to customers?
Great question. There's two things you give up. You give up a little bit of range, so the high-density mode knocks the output power down, and you're going to get maybe about 100-foot of range instead of 300-plus, so your range is reduced. And there's a slight penalty in the latency. Instead of 2 milliseconds or 1.999, you're going to get 2.9 milliseconds latency in the HD mode.
That's doable.
But for some users, I mean, this is what they're looking at, especially in these broadcasters in New York City or metro areas. This is a huge bonus because we could put so many channels and do it reliably in a small amount of spectrum.
And to get that high density, to overcompensate for that, I guess you could use a powered antenna, or just a better you could upgrade. You could make changes on the receiving end. Is that not correct?
Well, essentially, yes. As long as your antenna system is robust, the same antenna systems you use for analog UHF wireless are completely compatible with the Axient digital product. There's nothing special about its antenna or the kind of signal chain from the antenna back to the receiver. It's the same as you're used to.
So with Axient digital, what's the maximum amount of units you could use at one time?
Well, it depends on the amount of open spectrum. 47 microphones on air in 6 megahertz, and if you have 12 megahertz, you could double that. If you have, 18 megahertz, you could triple that, and the sky's the limit there.
Yeah.
But even more importantly, just in regular operating mode, standard mode, you can still do 17, which is over double what we can do with analog. So
that's amazing.
Digital is definitely the way of the future, for sure.
Excellent. Well, let's see. Do we have any other questions? We're getting some questions from some people online. Colin's got one.
We do have a question from Jim online. Asks, how does someone contact Mid-South Audio?
You can contact us by visiting our website, www.midsouthaudeo.com, and any questions that they have about Shure, we'll do our best to answer. And we have the resources of getting in touch with Shure to further answer their questions. And also, you guys have done a great job of making a lot of this stuff available on the website. There's a lot of you did a webinar, I know it was a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and that's actually up on you've posted that goes into a great amount of detail about this. So those resources are all available on the Shure website. Is that not correct?
That's right. Yeah, we do our best to put the information up as quickly as possible and as accurately as possible to make an educated decision.
Okay, we were going to give away an SM58 microphone now. So let's see. Do we have? We've had quite a few questions, but we zipped through them. I don't know how we're going to decide who had the best question that came in that wasn't.
I think Pat.
How are we going to do this?
I think Pat did.
That was earlier, though. That was earlier. That was not related to this segment. Let's see. We'll have to review these questions and figure that out. Greg, we'll rely on you to figure that out. How about that, Greg? You still with us?
Anything I can do to help.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure you were still there. Wake up. Wake up. I think this has been a very informative segment. I'm glad we extended the extra half hour. I really applaud Shore for being involved, and we will make sure that that the SM58 goes to a participant. That some of these questions have come in faster than we could actually read. This half hour went by really quick, so we will figure that out and go from there. And then, Greg, if you don't mind, while you're on the line, because you'll be back with us next week with QSC, we're asking people, and I don't know if you've heard this earlier in the show, but we're asking people to send us an email, tell us why QSC should give them a TouchMix 8, and then we're going to let you figure that out. How about that?
Good. Sounds like a plan.
Okay. All right. Ben, thank you so much. That was very informative. Thanks for taking time out of your Tuesday night to join a bunch of crazy guys in Lower Delaware, and we really appreciate that. I know our viewers will, and this show gets shared and downloaded a lot through the course of the next month. So I think it's going to be a great source of information. It was very, very informative on our end. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for having us on your show. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. And that's going to do it for us. We are out of time. We will do this again in a month, folks. Last Tuesday of... What's next? July. Thank you. See, he's on it. He's on it. The little guy is on it. Last Tuesday of July, we'll be back with you, and QSC will be our sponsored guest, and we will go from there. Thanks a lot for joining us on Tech Talk Live. Have a great night, everybody.